What up, my people? This is your guide to filthy analyst for the topics where we talk about trash, and one man's trash is another man's treasure. We lit, we live, we're ready, blessings upon blessings. Happy 50th anniversary to hip hop, and as always, it comes with some controversy. And the controversy is whether or not Puerto Ricans had a hand in creating hip hop, whether or not we are part of the pioneers who created the culture. The reality is yes. Yes, we are. Yes, we are. And I'm going to tell you why. Apart from hip hop, right? In the 70s and the 80s, okay, the Puerto Ricans and the black people were much more united. Much more united. Why? Because we grew up in the same evils, or better said, they grew up in the same evils. And what I refer to as they, I refer to as my parents of and the people of that era. People that were born in the 60s, raised in the 70s, had children in the 80s. We talking about these people, or the people who lived out in the 80s. So when you look at the times, we were much more united. Okay. Most of the gangs, there was a lot of gangs back then. There was a lot of gangs. You know what I'm saying? If you ever go watch the movie, excuse me, back in the day, I don't know if it's B Street, but I'm not sure which one it is. It's Warriors come out and play. So that's just an example right there, that little movie, of how many different gangs there was all over New York City. And if you notice, these gangs were mixed Puerto Rican and black together. It'd be different gangs. The Lords, the this, the that. But guess what? It'd be Puerto Ricans and blacks in one gang. There wasn't too much of like it is now, where it's like, okay, Bloods is a black gang, Latin Kings or Patria now, because there's a lot of Dominicans. You know what I'm saying? The Spanish gang. And it wasn't really like that. You know what I'm saying? It was not like that. You know what I'm saying? A crew was a crew. A posse was a posse. You know what I'm saying? And meaning it wasn't racial. It was a couple black people, a couple Spanish people. And the reason I can tell you this, I know for a fact, because as far as I can remember, and when I look back at pictures of my pops, right, who was raised in that era, he always had pictures of him and his friends, and there was a mixture of Latin and black. And another thing y'all fail to understand is that our Puerto Rican heritage, our descendants are Indians and blacks. And we were also infiltrated by the Europeans and the Spaniards and raped and killed just like you guys, and brought into this country to deal with the evils of it. So for that time, we were much more united until later down the line, somehow they figured how to divide and conquer and put us Puerto Ricans and us Latins, and I say that now because there's a lot of Dominicans and a lot of other Latins around, against the blacks, and the blacks against the Latins. But the reality is, in those days, 70s, 80s, we were one. Even in the 90s to the early 2000s, before the blood game kicked in, the blood gang, excuse me, and the Crips and all that came to New York. I can't talk about LA. I can't talk about the West Coast. You know what I'm saying? I could talk about New York. Same way when we was young growing up and we had our little gangs and our little crews and our little posses. Guess what? Guess what? It didn't matter color. We was mixed in. Spanish, black, black, Spanish. We was all mixed in. And guess what? To go to the original topic. Us Puerto Ricans was beat bopping and banging on windows and rapping and all that hot shit and dancing since way back then. Why? Because we were one. So this bozo, right, that I seen talking, this older dude talking how Puerto Ricans wouldn't go to the park and blah, blah, blah. Bro, now you know he's capping. Because in those days, Puerto Ricans and blacks were like one. We fucked with each other hard body. I'm not going to say there wasn't no type of racism back then. There wasn't none of it. I'm not going to say there wasn't all black crews and all Latin crews. I'm not going to say there wasn't that either. But it wasn't as much. If you seen a black crew, guess what? You seen 1, 2, 3 Spanish dudes in there. And vice versa. So for this guy to say that Puerto Ricans wouldn't even dare go to a park or that we are not pioneers in hip hop, put respect on our name, Pop. Put some respect on our name, because we definitely had a hand and we definitely are part of being pioneers of the culture. So for you dudes trying to X us out, you can't. You can't. It's there. It's in the books. Go in the pictures. Go in the pictures from the 80s. Go in the pictures from the 70s. All the little crews, it consisted of black and Latin people, Puerto Ricans specifically. And if you notice, in them pictures, if you go back, a lot of times you can't tell who the Puerto Rican is or who the black person is. Why? Because the Puerto Ricans had the biggest afros ever, just like the blacks. Afro-Rican. So it's like, for this dude to go around spreading that bullshit propaganda, I have to speak on it. Whether I was there for that time or not, I've seen proof. Let me tell you something. And this for my Spanish people. My mom's ex-husband who passed away. His afro was like the Jackson 5. His skin was black. If he didn't speak Spanish, you would never know. Until he spoke. Until he spoke. You dig? So, at the end of the day, I'm not going to say, oh, we black too. But we been there. We been there. And guess what? It runs in our blood too. And for the people who don't know the history, the Tainos were originally dark-skinned people who were raped by the Spaniards and the Europeans, just like the Africans was, just like the Native American Indians was. We all victims to the conquistadors. That's just a fact. So all this divide and conquer and separate, nah, my people, we together. This is much bigger than just 50 years of hip hop. This is way bigger than just 50 years of hip hop. This goes back in time to when the conquistadors went to Africa and took over, to when the conquistadors went to the islands of the Caribbean and took over and killed millions of Taino Indians and chopped their hands off when they couldn't bring gold. See, but, and no offense to my black people out there, but y'all want to act like y'all the only victims. The reality, or like y'all created everything in the world. All right, Egypt, cool. Like, it's just because we want to go there. Egypt, that's it. But y'all ain't create everything in the world. Y'all ain't the pioneers of everything. Because guess what? Before Egypt, there was Peru. Before that, there was the Mayans. So at the end of the day, we've been here together. Let's stop the divide and conquer. I just wanted to spread some facts. Some facts. Because yes, Puerto Ricans are part of pioneering hip-hop. Definite. I can't remember a time where I didn't hear hip-hop since being born. You know what I'm saying? Apart from Mom Dukes playing all the 60s, 70s, slow jams, and whoop-de-whoop. I can't remember a time of not knowing hip-hop. Not trying to rap. So, yeah. With that being said, we definitely are a big part of pioneering the culture. And I just wanted to spread that knowledge for you people spreading propaganda. Real is real. And it is what it is. And with that being said, it is I, your guy, the 50 Animals, 50 Topics, where we talk all trash. And one man's trash is another man's treasure. Peace.